So for anybody who's old enough to remember Super Mario Bros. 2, today we're in the garden talking about a vegetable from that very game, and that is turnips. Well, today we're out in the garden and we're talking about a vegetable that I'm gonna say I think is pretty familiar to people. They'll definitely know the name of it, but I'm not sure how many people actually grow it or consume a lot of it, and that's turnips. So here we've been growing basically a standard variety, purple top turnips, for quite a few years. Never in a big quantity, but I have to be honest, and I'll take you over here in a second, I think this year is by far our best turnip year ever.
Ever.
Emphasis on ever. So here is our turnip patch, and
a bit overgrown.
It looks overgrown, but in there are some amazing turnips. And today,
Look at that.
as you can see, that is a nice looking turnip. Today is harvest day for at least a percentage of these turnips.
Today is the day we find out we're turnip farmers.
So let's pull that guy up and
Right now?
Yeah.
No more anticipation?
No, I think this is be a good one. That is a extremely nice blemish-free turnip. And,
amazing.
Definitely lives up to its name.
Look at that, even the bottom, a little
top.
bit of damage, but not much. That's incredible.
Really, in today's day and age, where at least recently people are worried about where their food comes from and food security and all those kind of things, I'm going to say it, this is where turnips potentially can shine, because turnips have this reputation, and there's some legitimacy to it throughout history, of being sort of a quote-unquote poor person's food, because they're relatively easy to grow, they're fairly prolific, and they're fast growing. Turnips, depending on the variety, you can grow them in about 60 days, 60 to 70 days. That's a fast turnaround, which means that you can grow multiple crops of turnips in a year, which is our plan. This is only crop number one. And of course, turnips are fairly versatile. For us, one of our favorite ways to prepare them, I guess, is basically turnip pickles, which we think are amazing. It's a fermented turnip pickle, which we do have a video for. We'll kind of link that up above here. But they can be used pretty much the same way as almost any other root vegetable that you would grow, carrots, potatoes, etc., which makes them pretty versatile. So of course, turnips are a member of the brassica family. They're Brassica rapa, which for most of your garden vegetables, or most of your garden variety brassicas, this biannual crop is something that you could grow alongside your cabbages, your broccolis, your kohlrabis, all of those other more familiar kale, those more familiar, more quote-unquote desirable brassicas, and you can still keep seeds from them, which is awesome. Now, we have never actually kept seeds because they are biannual, and we've just never really been on the ball with it. But in 2022, our late crops, we're going to see if we can store some of these over the winter, which storage is very similar to any other root vegetable, which is another plus, to get some seed next year in 2023. Now, this relatively impenetrable looking mat of turnip greens is interesting for a couple of reasons. One, they are edible. Now, we've never eaten them, and today we're not actually going to collect and use them, but apparently they're edible, just like a lot of brassica greens. But the other interesting thing about this is, even though they are technically a root vegetable, what we actually did this year, and I think this has been a significant reason for success, is we started these ahead in seed trays. Basically, the seed is tiny, like any member of the brassica family. And what we found in the past, and potentially where we've sort of floundered a bit on producing really nice turnips, is we've planted them directly in the ground. Well, this year we just got the harebrained idea, let's plant them ahead of time. And what was nice about that is we essentially got a little rosette, and that allowed us to space them out perfectly, which seems to have worked amazing. We process another turnip here quickly. One thing about the turnips versus some of the other brassicas, they're relatively pest-free. Flea beetles can be a pretty big pest at times, but they tend to Turnips tend to be okay with them. They seem to be all right with that. And you will get a little bit of damage to the root occasionally.
There's worms in there, guck in there.
Often they don't go very deep. As you see with these ones, they're kind of just under the surface. So you do occasionally end up sort of composting part of the turnip. But when in 60 days you can get something that weighs, how much has that got to weigh?
Half a pound?
Yeah, a half a pound vegetable.
And the rest of it is really clean. Like, I mean, when I go to process that into something, I'll just cut that piece off. The rest of it is really good.
There is basically our first harvest from our turnip patch, where we'll be coming back here multiple times to continue harvesting, because we figured this will make probably 4 jars of pickled turnips.
Or 1 liter jars.
Or 1 liter jars of pickled turnips, which is awesome. We'll probably make some more after that. We only have so many fermenting lids. But as you can see from the greenery, it really didn't make much of a dent. There are still quite a few pounds of turnips left in this, our first sort of planting of turnips for 2022. So of course, one thing about turnips too is, especially if you have rabbits, they make excellent food. We're going to feed the tops from these particular turnips to our rabbits here in a moment, and they love them. And it's a pretty nutritious and easy to grow fodder for things like rabbits. So as you can see, these young bunnies are very much enjoying the turnip tops. Now, you kind of get a double, from a livestock perspective, you kind of get a double whammy, I guess. Because obviously right now, this first round of turnips, given that we're July and we're harvesting, we're going to use those for humans, unless there's any that are, not in good shape, which doesn't seem to be the case. But in your later fall plantings, those are the ones that you can store, and you could, because it's only 60 days, you could grow enough turnips to store as a winter fodder. So you would not only get the greens, as we're feeding here, sort of as the immediate food item or fodder item, but you'd have the turnip root, which would be stored for later winter use. So they don't require a lot of space and they grow really fast. That's kind of an excellent root crop to be using as rabbit fodder. So hopefully after watching this video, at least from a growing perspective, and sort of considering some of the other things turnips can do for you, consider growing them yourself, because honestly, as far as root vegetables go, there's not too much that's easier that gives you such a big yield per seed.